So I'm gonna go over with her, and I'll just sit over there.
Call the Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 regular meeting of the Portsmouth City Council to order. And our invocation tonight will be given by Councilman Ray Smith. I'll ask my colleagues on council to stand for the invocation, and then we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Bill Moody.
Good evening. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we call on your holy and righteous name this evening. We come with thanksgiving in our hearts for all of the many bountiful blessings that you bestow upon us each and every day of our lives. Number one is allowing us to be here with our good health and strength this evening. And we pray for our great city. We pray that you would anoint and touch those, strengthen them, encourage them as they go about their day-to-day business. We ask that you would bless this meeting tonight, that you would guide, direct us, humble our hearts, and keep us together. We ask that you bless each and every council member on the dais here, every staff member, every person under the sound of my voice. We ask God's blessings and praises and protection over each and every life. It is in the name of Jesus that we ask and pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now have our roll call. We'll do it electronically. Please hit the yes button to signify your presence. And Madam Clerk, we have a quorum. Yes.
Thank you.
Right. The next, we have the minutes of a call meeting of October 22nd, 2018. The minutes of a call meeting of October 23rd, 2018. And the minutes of a regular meeting October 23rd, 2018. We'll consider all of these together. Is there a motion to approve?
adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
The next presentations, we have a presentation to celebrate Small Business Saturday. Small businesses make up 99% of all the business in the United States and in Virginia, and that's true in Portsmouth. And we have with us our Director of Economic Development, Robert Moore. Mr. Moore, will you come down? Do you have any members of the EDA with you?
Sure, sir.
Okay, the members of the EDA will come. Tracy Link. And Madam Clerk, we have a proclamation, and will you read the proclamation as I join Mr. Moore and Ms. Link?
Yes, sir. City of Portsmouth, a proclamation. Whereas the government of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30.2 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States companies, and create over 2/3 of new jobs over the past 17 years. And whereas small businesses employ 47.5% of the working population in the United States, and whereas Portsmouth, Virginia supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocacy groups and public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, our Mayor, John L. Rhodes Jr., do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 24th, 2018 as Small Business Saturday in Portsmouth, and urge our residents urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
This past spring, I chose our small businesses as my theme for the state of the city and celebrated a few. And one of the ones that we celebrated was your business. And we thank you for being here. And I'm going to give you this proclamation. And I urge, how many people remember Gene Walters? Gene Walters would always end his commercial by saying, tell a friend. I want you to tell a friend to come shopping, and that friend doesn't necessarily have to reside only in Portsmouth. It's even better if you can get somebody from Chesapeake or Norfolk or Suffolk to come here on Saturday, the 24th of November, to shop in Portsmouth. Tracy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we are truly, truly grateful for this. And I, too, encourage all of you, tell a friend. You know, one of the things as a small business owner we try to remind everybody is when you buy from a big company, you may be adding to their bottom line and the shares the stockholders are enjoying dividends. But when you buy from a small business, it might be a bike for a grandchild or a trip to the dentist that might have been on hold for a while. So please, please, I urge you, shop our small businesses, and they are lovely in this city. Thank you again so much.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Robert Ward?
I just want to say thank you to City Council and to the members of our Economic Development Authority and our PPIC. Just last week, Council celebrated with us Veteran Small Business. Now we are celebrating Small Business Saturday. And I just want to say thank you for the extra incentive and push that you all have made towards economic development, but more specifically small businesses. As you all know, and you may have heard, businesses like Amazon are growing, and they are coming to our lovely state. But at the end of the day, it's still the small business that is the backbone of our community. So again, thank council, thank the city manager's office, thank the mayor, vice mayor, and I just hope and ask everyone to shop small.
And shop small in Portsmouth. No one likes to pay taxes, right? And no one wants to pay taxes for somebody else. So don't pay the taxes in Chesapeake or in Norfolk or at the beach when you buy something. Pay your taxes here. So encourage your friends, your neighbors to shop in Portsmouth and shop small. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tonight we have two public hearings, and Madam Clerk, will you read the protocol on speakers, please?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice the timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
We have, again, two public hearings, and although we have people who have signed up to speak at the public hearings, anybody in the audience can speak, whether or not you've signed up or not. But I will take those people who have, those persons who have signed up first. And would you read the caption of the first public hearing, Ms. White?
Yes, sir. Item A, CP 1801, citywide. The city is proposing to update its comprehensive plan. The new document will be titled Build One Portsmouth. The plan will include an updated future land use map, strategies and tactics for achieving the identified goals, and recommendations for funding and tools for implementing the strategies and tactics. Planning Commission recommends approval with conditions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam City Manager, Dr. Patton.
Thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. First, I would like to call to the podium the Chairman of the Planning Commission, Mr. Albert Williams. He will come forward and provide some brief comments, followed by Mr. Bob Baldwin, Interim City Manager and Planning Director, to provide a presentation on Bill 1 Portsmouth.
Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of council, it is indeed a pleasure to be with you this evening. It is an honor for me to come before you to talk briefly about the updated comprehensive plan, which is clearly entitled Building One Portsmouth. I think you will find in this plan that we've taken great pains in order to make it concise, focused, and to the extent that we can clearly focus on the opportunities available in the city of Portsmouth. We have taken great pains to be absolutely sure that we have allowed citizens to communicate on the plan, and they have done so extensively. I think you will be quite impressed. Some of you have already come to the public hearings, and I've seen many of you there. But I think this is an opportunity again for us to excel and focus our attention on the city of Portsmouth. As I remember Building One Portsmouth, I'm often reminded of that great song sung in the city of Portsmouth many years ago. Portsmouth is for people.
Thank you, sir. And thank you and your colleagues on the Planning Commission for the hard work that you do for our city. Thank you, sir. Dr. Patton.
Mr. Baldwin will come forward now.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Simmons, and members of City Council. It's certainly my pleasure to be before you tonight after over 3 years of work to bring to you this updated comprehensive plan. You may recall back in 2015, we initiated this project with demographic analysis to take a look at the city before we proceeded to the primary comprehensive plan process, working with our consultants of MDC and their sub-consultants. In addition, working with a large number of citizens, Planning Commission, city staff, city manager's office, city council members. Certainly like to thank our council liaisons, in particular, Councilman Lucas Burke, who's been a regular participant in these projects and the public meetings as we've gone forward. But what I'd like to do tonight is, since this is such a large project, the document itself is over 300 pages. I will not go through all of the plan for you tonight, but I would like to sort of advise you and for the public to take a look at what the format is. This is different than typical comprehensive plans that have been done in the past. Rather than being sort of a chapter-by-chapter analysis you might see in like our Vision 2005, the Destination 2005 plan, this really goes through, as we described it, thematic elements, trying to integrate the plan as opposed to having different chapters. It's really broken down. We have a strategic plan. We've got a implementation plan. We have a geographic plan, and then at the bottom, you can't really see the heading down there, but there is a glossary. The plan, as we designed this thing, was intended to be available both in a hard copy. It's also available online electronically, and the electronic version is user-friendly. You can move all through the document without having to go page by page at a time. So we want to make sure that you could do that. And we also want to put the glossary in the appendix in there because we referenced an awful lot of other pre-existing plans and documents. We want to make sure people can see what those were. And we also want to put the glossary in there so that people don't get lost in planning terms or terminology, may not be familiar with them. So we put, and that's something I don't think is common in a lot of plans. We did try to put a glossary in there to help people who were looking at it. They weren't sure of a term, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the core of the plan obviously is the strategic plan. It includes the vision, the goals, strategies, and tactics. And that's what most people recognize as the nuts and bolts of a comprehensive plan. As you know, it's a policy document. It's really designed to look at future land use in the city and try to deal with the issues that, during the course of the process, the public and the and others have determined the city needs to deal with it. And so in this case, we tried to do this in a sort of an organized process, again, having goals, strategies to achieve those goals, and then tactics are sort of more discrete activities to help accomplish the strategies. Geographic plan, I think every comprehensive plan you've ever looked at has had we refer to this as geographic. They've always had maps. There's always been a series of maps in there, whether it be a future land use map or character areas, maps showing vacant land, maps showing your historic resources. All of that is included in this plan. There's a number of geographic plans. A couple of things you'll start to see different in this plan. We'll talk about a little bit more in a second. We're starting both due to conditions I think you're all aware of in terms of flooding and sea level rise, to take a look at more of our environmental issues. Obviously with the plan with a 20-plus year focus, you need to start looking at those things. And there's also a state mandate now in your comprehensive plan that you must look at sea level rise as an element of your plan. And I will tell you, over time, the General Assembly has continued to add additional elements into what they want you looking at in your comprehensive plan. You'll see more of those as we move ahead. There may actually have to be some minor plans done between now and the next update of this plan to comply with what the state is asking. Again, there's an implementation plan. Obviously, what everybody wants to know when you get through the plan, how are you going to implement the plan? Common, statement made by the public is, okay, this is great. This is going to sit on a shelf, or is anybody going to use it? So there's a lot of work, a lot of input from the public and others coming up with implementation strategies to try to achieve those goals, and that's all, captured in this document. How to go about doing, what are best practices, those types of things. Again, as I mentioned before, we do have a glossary. You can see some of the appendices on the side. There's a large number of references in this document. They're all available electronic. You can click on these things online. They'll take you to those documents or take you to those definitions. It's also, I just again mentioned, the document is possible to download into a hard copy. We've had those out in the libraries and the planning department, for example. But again, with it being over 300 pages, most people prefer to kind of go through this way. And this plan is set up in another way that I think is helpful. It doesn't intend for you to have to read all 300 pages to look for which one. It's designed to be searched, and people can look for the specific things they are trying to identify. Again, we've discussed these with City Council before. In fact, Council provided input and comments on these things. So these were the four kind of visions and goals that came out during the planning process: thriving, resilient, evolving, and equitable. And those were sort of the four vision and goal themes that are represented throughout the plan. Again, we talked about the future land use plan. One thing that I will tell you that one of the benefits, if you want to call it as such, for having gone through a recession, that the work that we did in the future land use plan in 2005 hadn't really been changed that drastically, because pretty much right after that comprehensive plan was adopted, we went into recession. So as much of the development that was being anticipated is still the same kind of development you're still anticipating today. In this case, there's more refinement to the maps. We have better mapping, we have better data. So for example, where before we might have had heavy industrial, today on the map you'll see where if it's a port property, you'll see it labeled as such. So we've been able to extract in there, put a port use as opposed to just calling it heavy industrial. So it's a little bit more information for people looking at the map section. We'll get one of the issues that has been discussed, came about from a request from the Cavalier Manor Civic League. We discussed this with City Council at your last work session a couple of weeks ago. And this is that question about this property at 4358 Greenwood Drive. That property, as you can see, as it's shown on the map there, that's the way it was shown in the 2005 comprehensive plan. That brown color is multifamily. You can see the outline of that 4358 property in black there. The Cavalier Manor Civic League had asked for that property to be changed in the comprehensive plan to single-family residential as opposed to multifamily, and based on the direction from City Council work session, that's what it would look like should you adopt the plan with that change in place. And I think you can see from the conversation, again, from the work session, that's a perfectly logical land use designation that's consistent with what's around it, what's across the street from it. Again, as I mentioned, sea level rise, we are required by the state to do sea level rise, to initiate sea level rise planning. Of course, it's interesting, we started this process, you weren't allowed to discuss climate change or sea level rise, and as we got into it, it became much more of a thing. So we were trying to establish a baseline. We worked with VIMS, who is really the agency, we'll say, affiliated with Women Mayor, but that's the agency that the state has designated as being sort of the lead for doing sea level rise research and doing modeling. So we have worked with them inside this plan. You will see sea level rise mapping. And as we've probably noted to a lot of people, perhaps compared to Norfolk, the sea level rise issue isn't quite as impactful in Portsmouth as it is across the water. We still have a lot of issues with flooding. We will have issues with sea level rise, but at least from the early modeling, it doesn't look quite as severe. We have a little bit more elevation in Portsmouth than across the Elizabeth River. And then finally, we get to the last part, maintaining the plan. Of course, you know, we are required by the state to update the plan, or at least review it every 5 years. I think the intention here is to not wait 5 years to update the plan. Sort of, there's a lot of recommendations and strategies out of the plan. We anticipate coming back to council on a regular basis with implementation plans and doing an annual review, kind of keeping up with how the recommendations of the plan are being addressed or not addressed, and then help prepare for the 5-year review date, which will come up in 2023. And that's pretty much an overview. Again, the plan has been available. I'll just mention on the buildOnePortsmouth.org webpage, the Planning Commission left it open for 2 months for public hearings. Tonight is, of course, the City Council public hearing on the plan as well. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Yes. Anybody have any questions? Any member of council? Dr. Patton?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Mr. Baldwin will speak to the second issue on the public hearing.
Well, you're talking about the next public hearing? Let's hold that. Let's go ahead and open this public hearing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I'll open the public hearing on CP 18-01, which is a citywide comprehensive plan. And we do have people who have signed up, and the first speaker is Cliff Page. And sir, you have 5 minutes. If you would state your name and your address, please.
Cliff Page, 465 Primrose Street in Portsmouth. Mr. Mayor, council members, I come before you to request that you reject this comprehensive plan that has been presented to you. For over 35 years, I've been involved in the planning with the planning department and in the city. For 5 years, I was on the design review committee and worked with the planners closely in putting together the initial plan. Over these years, I have gone through the comprehensive plans. And I suspect, not as a disparagement to any of you, but having done so in this plan, I suspect that some of you have probably not gone through the complete plan itself, because it's enormous. As Mr. Baldwin said, it's something like 300 pages. But what he also said was he changed the format. And that's one of the big problems with this. Let us look at two words. One is an adjective and another is a nominative word. The first is plan. In Europe, they use the idea of plan or guide to mean a roadmap, a document that shows a person how to get from point A to point Z and various alternative means of getting there. Now let's look at the other word, comprehensive. Comprehensive does not mean everything, including the kitchen sink, thrown into one document by the planning department. It means a comprehensive plan. It means the various alternatives to get to the end result. And this document does not do that, as Mr. Baldwin tells you. It is scattershot all over. A plan must give you a direction. It must tell you where it's going. And the state, it is a requirement. This plan does not come from planning. And I've spoken to planning at meetings. I've spoken to them personally about this, and I made the citizens aware of this fact. It is a document that is supposed to come from the people. This is the people's document about what they want to do, we want to do with our city, not something directed or instigated by the planning department. And this is why all these meetings were held. But I've gone through this plan, and it is very incomprehensible. I can only refer to it as being Talmudic. It is like a biblical concordance. It has gutters full of stuff on either side. It has call-outs. It has little charts. And in the middle, there's usually a big map, which is only about this big, although the format is about 16 inches by 11. It's like the sheets in a drafting. But you can't read the maps. If you can't read the maps, what's the purpose? It's very expensive to do all this. I guarantee you tens of thousands of dollars were spent on this document. But it reminds me of teaching in high school, and you go crazy with these new books they have that have been out for 15 or 20 years, and you wonder why are students complaining that they have attention deficit disorder. It's because of the textbooks. They're not linear. They're not A to Z. They could compile a book today like this, but it ends up like this with a lot of color pictures. This document appears to me, and I don't know that this is fact, but it appears to me that it's boilerplate from some software. It is very professionally done, but it does not tell the citizens or this council where we want to go. It doesn't tell you how to get there. It tells you a lot of problems. For instance, Mr. Baldwin tells you about all the flooding. Yes, we should address it, but does it say anywhere in there that these are some plans that we can implement that have been suggested to address some of these matters? No. One of the things that we have to concern ourselves with is, that I address particularly, is land banking. I specifically said to the committee that we should not have land banking. I brought redevelopment to court, and they admitted that they land bank. But every community development block grant this city hands out and publishes says in there, we do not land bank because it is illegal to take federal money and do so. In this document, it asks the city, it asks you to vote on something, and it says Danville has a land bank. Well, we all know that Danville and Charlottesville, their leadership up there are some way out kooks right now. They're anarchists. So we shouldn't be doing what Danville does. We should be doing what is within the law. And land banking is improper. It is illegal. And I said that we should take our land and tell Redevelopment Authority and Economic Development Authority, give them a deadline and say, put this stuff up for sale, because some of it is empty land that's been there for 30 and 40 years. Let's not talk about the federal government. Let's talk about our Redevelopment Authority, our Economic Development Authority that are holding land, and this is what's costing our citizens.
Sir, your time is up. Thank you.
If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, sir. And instruct the audience, please respect the speaker and be respectful of council too, as we try to listen to each speaker. Our next speaker is Alan Laurie. And sir, you have 5 minutes. Will you state your name and address, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Alan Laurie. I am at 928 La Cove Drive, Virginia Beach, Virginia. I am a contractor and a renovator. I work in all of Hampton Roads. The issue that I bring to you this evening, it may already be too late. I just found out about what was going on with this process about 4:30 this evening. So I'm bringing something to you that may be too late to discuss. But specifically, I'm working with a client right now that is attempting to do a renovation in the city of Portsmouth. They want to add a room for a mother-in-law and a disabled daughter. In preparing for zoning, I was told that we had to erase interior lot lines. These lot lines have been there since 1930. The house has been there since 1930 and has had very little impact on the surrounding community. We're not trying to rezone. We're not trying to make the house any less conforming than it already is. However, what we are finding is that my client is spending $1,700 to erase some lot lines because here in 40.1-6.4, non-conforming lots. There's a line in there that says that if you're going to improve a property, you first must vacate interior property lines. We started this process.
You're speaking to our zoning ordinance. This is the comprehensive plan. We respect your comments,
Right.
but would you keep your comments to the comprehensive plan?
Okay, well, the zoning ordinance is part of the comprehensive plan, is it not?
No.
Okay, well, then I will relinquish my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joanne Clark, And ma'am, you have 5 minutes. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Joanne Clark, 4717 Thornwood Street, Portsmouth, Virginia. As his previous speakers, Mr. Page talked about the comprehensive plan, I too have gone through the 333 pages online, cussing and fuming because my online service provider is slow. So it took a lot of time scrolling hour to hour. In any event, I hope that you will all do your due diligence and look at this plan very carefully. I see some obstacles in it and some legal issues that need to be addressed, so I'll go over that as quickly as I can. First of all, what I'd like to read to you is the state code. It's talking about the zoning ordinance must be drawn with reasonable consideration for the comprehensive plan, although the guide for future development can be very important to uphold zoning. So this comprehensive plan is like a leg support, and your zoning is the leg. The two have to work together. If one of them is out of alignment and not legally to code with the state, then we've got problems and future litigation when these things come up. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is Virginia Code 15-2-2201. Now this is important because throughout this document that I've looked at, what this says is shall not grant special privilege over other property owners. Throughout this document of 300 and some pages, there's a lot of duplication in verbiage. So you're going back and forth and they keep talking about these things. And under this code of 2201, it talks about equal protection when land use is permitted to one landowner to restrict another similarly situated or restriction is discriminatory. And that actually is a class action that had to do with the city of Colorado versus Roe, no relationship. The problem that I see with this document is that throughout it, it talks about increased densities in areas of land that are undeveloped. Now that's in direct conflict with trying to remediate flooding. When you increase the densities of properties in areas that have natural characteristics of trees and water lines and such, you're adding more concrete, more roofs, more impervious surface, then you're exacerbating the flooding. When you have impervious surface and it rains 4 inches in an hour, it all just collects. And then the more it rains, it just collects and collects. So when you increase your densities, you're increasing flooding. We already have a problem with flooding in this city. So the increase of densities that you've created in this comprehensive plan are contraindicatory of what you want to do in this city. It's expensive to remediate more flooding. I was surprised to see what was formerly known as the Agricultural Open Space Reserve Program, which is in this document, called the Transfer of Development Rights. Let me remind you of a delegate in the southern part of Virginia Beach who utilized this very same agricultural program. He went upon poor landowners, acquired the land cheaply, and then participated in the government program and absconded $5 million of money for his own benefit. I am very disturbed because the intent of this program was for farmers to maintain their farms, keep the farms in their land so that they can pay their taxes, they would sell the development rights, keep the farm, and there was open space and farmers can. There's no farmers in Portsmouth. Why is this here? This is prejudicial favoring of developers and people who have purchased land. This does not, nobody else in here can do this. These are landowners. What is to stop them from doing the same thing that delegate did in Virginia Beach? And it be perfectly legal. To buy up parcels of land, amass large amounts, and then go into a development transfer and getting more money from the government. let's see, I have lots of things to cover. Let's talk about best management practices and resource management areas.
Ma'am, your time
Maybe
is up.
not. Thank you for listening. I
Thank
hope you
you.
review this and understand there's
Thank you, ma'am.
problems. Thank you.
Our last speaker that signed up is Mark Udalgi-Yotrowski, and sir, you have 5 minutes, and would you state your name and address, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. My problem with what is before you is that you apparently intend to amend the document after the public hearing closes without the public ever having had an opportunity to review what you are proposing. So you will be making a part of this document something that was not subject to the public hearing. To me, that violates transparency. I would ask you, therefore, to defer consideration of this item until you have made your motion and put it on the table. I'm sorry, you have put it out for public comment, and then you can adopt your motion or not, and the entire Build One Portsmouth plan or not, having let it go through a full public review. What you contemplate doing excludes the public from any involvement in the amended language. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, the public hearing is open for anybody that did not sign up, anybody that wished to speak on this matter. Please come to the lectern, state your name and address, please, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Is there anybody that would like to speak at this public hearing on the city's proposed comprehensive plan? Therefore, seeing nobody, I declare this public hearing closed. And so that we can put this matter before us, is there a motion?
Move for adoption.
We have a motion.
Oh, you already said, oh, what we do? I move to approve the draft comprehensive plan as shown on the Build One Portsmouth website, with the exception that the future land use map be changed to show the future land use of 4358 Greenwood Drive, tax parcel 0559-0010 as single-family residential.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Now we're ready for the discussion. This matter is on first reading, and after we take the vote, it will be on its second reading at the next council meeting, and the public is welcome to come and sign up to speak on agenda items. Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, which is to adopt as presented by Councilwoman Lucas Burke, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries on its first reading. Will you read the caption of our next public hearing, please?
Yes, sir. Item B, CA 1803, citywide. The City of Portsmouth is proposing to amend the zoning ordinance to modify the definition of offices, professional services, professional offices to include real estate offices, excluding them from offices sales. This will allow real estate offices in the historic limited office districts by right and allow real estate offices as professional offices with a use permit in the urban residential and urban residential high zoning districts. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Dr. Patton.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, we will call Mr. Baldwin for discussion.
Good evening again, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Simmons, and members of council. I think this is a code amendment you're all familiar with. This was the code amendment that came about from a citizen who was interested in opening up a real estate office, and I believe it was in the Old Town Historic Limited Office. And when they came in to go through that, it actually started with a sign, but it was actually more related to the actual use. And when they came in, they realized that that use was not permitted in that district. And council asked us to take a look at that, and with the Planning Commission's motion on the matter, we went back and took a look at an appropriate code amendment. It turns out that this is a relatively simple fix to this thing. This is really a definition change. It involves just moving the real estate office terminology, which is, for some reason, and this dates back to at least 1972, it's been specifically excluded from that definition. But to move that, because the real estate offices were considered part of a different type of an office. And so in order to address this, simple fix, redo the definition of a professional office, add real estate into it, and that solves the issue. So relatively straightforward code amendment, just modifying the definition.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from Mr. Baldwin? Thank you, sir. I will now open the public hearing on CA 18-03. And is there anybody that wants to speak to this matter? If you do, please come to the lectern and state your name and your address. Anybody wish to speak at this public hearing? You'll have 5 minutes. Please come to the lectern. Thank you. Seeing none, I declare that this public hearing is closed. So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve. It's been duly seconded. This is on its first reading, so if the motion passes, I'll come back at the next meeting for its second and final vote. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries. Which brings us to the City Manager's report and item 18-425. Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of this ordinance that we're about to consider?
Yes, sir. An ordinance reducing the Community and Regional Organizations Grant Program funding awarded to the Portsmouth Area Resources Coalition under the FY 2019 budget from $83,625 to $0, and reallocating said funds within the program as follows. $62,718 to Help in Emergency Response, Inc., or HER Shelter, for management and operation of an emergency shelter, and $20,907 to a miscellaneous reserve for future award and nonprofit organizations providing services for Portsmouth citizens during the FY 2019.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Sir, we have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Now it's ready for discussion. We have one registered speaker, and that's Donna Sy. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 18-425 is an ordinance affecting the Community and Regional Organization page in the budget book for the year 2018-19. The Portsmouth Area Resources Coalition grant program has in its budget over $83,000. This ordinance will take over $62,000 to the HER Shelter to manage and operate the shelter. The other over $20,000 will be put in a miscellaneous reserve for future award to nonprofit organizations that provide services for Portsmouth citizens during the 2018-2019 year. What we would like to see is the paperwork from the HER Shelter to see how the money is planned to be used. And we would like to see what is happening to the park organization by written evidence. We'd also like to see where this miscellaneous reserve money is placed to keep track of it. What Portsmouth citizens will be able to get this money? When will we get the answers to these questions? Nathan, you are my representative for voting precinct 34, so I will assign you to the task to inform me at your earliest convenience. Thanks for your help.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion, which is to adopt? All right, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, which is to adopt this ordinance, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, wait, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 18-426, which is the consideration of the adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting State Homeland Security Program grant funds in the amount of $48,100 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and appropriating said funds in the FY 2019 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services.
Thank you.
Yes,
So that
sir.
we can consider this matter, so a motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, that motion passes.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 18-427, which is the adoption of an ordinance accepting certain grant funds. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting an opioid treatment and recovery grant in the amount of $28,499 from the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services and appropriating said funds in the FY 2019 Behavioral Healthcare Services Fund for use by the Department of BHS to provide treatment and other services for individuals with a diagnosis of opioid use disorder.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So that we can consider this matter, so motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion that's been made and duly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, which is to adopt, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Oh, we do. 2-7. We do have a speaker, and that's Donna Sy. Hold your vote. I apologize, ma'am. I thought you were speaking on the next item. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 18-427 is an ordinance accepting an opioid treatment and recovery grant in the amount of over $28,000 from the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services for the year 2018-19. This money will go into a 2018-19 year Behavioral Health Care Services Fund for the Department of Behavioral Health Service to provide treatment and other services for individuals with a diagnosis of opioid use disorder. We need to see evidence of where this money is going, how this money is being spent, and what do you mean other services for individuals with a diagnosis of opioid use disorder. We need to know the number of persons and have a record of how they are improving or are having relapses. We need to see documentation always when money is being transferred and assigned to departments. Show me evidence. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion on this motion? Ready for the question, which is to adopt 18-427. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries, which brings us to item 18-428, which is the consideration of the adoption of a certain ordinance. And would you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance appropriating the sum of $1,900,000 from the general fund unassigned fund balance to the non-departmental salary bonus line item in the FY 2019 general fund budget for the purpose of funding a one-time supplement in the net amount of $1,000 to all full-time employees of the City of Portsmouth who commenced employment prior to January 1, 2018, and remain employed as of the date of the payment of the supplement, with the exception of certain categories of employees specified herein.
Is there a motion to adopt so we can consider this matter?
Second.
And we're ready for our discussion. We do have one registered speaker. We have several. The first speaker is Michael Rudman, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, respected sirs. My name is Michael Rudman. I live 2805 Victory Boulevard, the trailer park on Victory Boulevard, Portsmouth, Virginia. All right, let's see. My basic theme is you guys are stewards of this general fund money. It's not your money to give out as largesse. And in a city where people say, true or not, Portsmouth has the highest taxes of Hampton Roads, and it's an annual issue. This is an injustice. Okay, from my own viewpoint, okay, I purchased 2 1/16 acre lots here, and I found that they were being taxed as 1/3 of an acre. 1/16 tax. Now, Virginia state law says you have to tax at 100%. That's in violation. I thought, you know, it's not that much. Let me just pay it, but I'll test the system and see how a normal person could do it. So I found there's a 3-step process, Portsmouth Code 35-77. And so I went in and took the first step. And I said, I'd like to challenge this. And they gave me a date. I came in on that date and found they had moved the date 2 weeks back. And they said, I'm sorry, you missed it. I was like, no problem, I paid. Went on to the next year, challenged it again, okay? I kept on top of it, and the answer was no. Well, the second step is the equalization board. Took it to the equalization board.
How does this relate to
It does, I'm sorry.
Please.
That's fine. My point is that I didn't even get the third step. Again, it was, Thomas Ashby can tell you how. It was denied despite Virginia Code 58-13984.
That's not
Now,
germane, sir, to what we're considering.
Okay.
Please keep your comments
Yes,
to
sir.
this.
Okay. Therefore, my point is that the general feeling seems to be, and I agree, that the taxation here is a little bit lawless. I'm not going to say it is. I'm going to say it seems to be. Okay? Now, you have a reality here. You've got despair increasing in Portsmouth. The economy for regular people is going down. You have massive increases as a result in suicides, murders. I believe knifings and shootings are weekly at least. Not quite daily yet. Okay? There are other things that should be done, including possibly returning it to the people. Okay? I'm just going to ask, if anybody back there agrees with me, please stand up. If you don't stand up, so be it. If you do, please do.
Okay.
Now, of those who agree with me, if there are any, if you are not a city employee, please sit down. Maybe there are some city employees who agree with me. I don't know. That's all. I'm done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Mark Godolgi-Otrowski, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. I am speaking in opposition to this item. There are a couple of reasons for that. The first one is a process disagreement. To date, the city has not presented its comprehensive annual financial report. So we really don't have the big picture of what last year's budget results were. But here, the city is proposing to take some money out of what remains from the fiscal 2018 budget and redistribute it. The citizens should have an opportunity to see what is left and make up our minds about how that should be reallocated. You're preempting that opportunity. Now, I stand here as somebody who opposed the current year's budget because it did not include an increase for general wage employees. To me, when you are formulating a budget, it's not appropriate to say, well, we'll see what we have left over and make a determination later. We are in a time of rising inflation. The Federal Reserve has increased interest rates 3 times thus far and anticipates raising them again because of inflation. But people working for the city are receiving no adjustment in their compensation. A bonus does not count the same way that a salary increase does. It does not count toward their eventual pension benefit. It's a one-time thing, it's here, and then it's gone. A salary increase endures. So the city did not put together a budget that balanced recurring revenues with the reasonable expectation that there should be an increase for its employees. Doing this is not a substitute. So for those 2 reasons, I ask you to reject this item. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no further speakers that have signed up, and so council's ready to discuss. Ready for the question, then? All in favor of the adoption of this motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 18429. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance?
Yes, sir. An ordinance appropriating the sum of $500,000 from the general fund unassigned fund balance to the non-departmental benefits retiree supplemental line item in the FY 2019 general fund budget for the purpose of funding a one-time supplement in the gross amount of $500 to beneficiaries under the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System and the Fire and Police Retirement System.
Thank you, ma'am. So,
Yes, sir.
so that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance? Okay, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. We're ready for discussion. We do have a signed up speaker, and that's Mark Udalgi-Yatrowski. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens, I rise to oppose this item. As I have said in previous addresses to council on such matters, the participants in the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System have been adequately compensated when you and your predecessors, those of you who are carryovers, eliminated the Social Security offset that was part of the original plan. Social Security offset meant that those employees in the plan who had reached the normal retirement age of 65 would have a reduction in their benefit by up to half of their Social Security compensation. When you eliminated that, you added several $100s a month to everybody's compensation, but you did not pay for it, which means the taxpayers of this city are making up that difference. When retirement plans are put together, they're put together for the long haul. You plan out what the contribution is over time. You plan out the formula so that when people reach retirement age, they will be receiving what you have promised. What you have done is over-delivered on the promise and put the burden on the taxpayer. So those members of the retirement system, the ones in the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System, should not be receiving any additional supplements. In regard to the fire and police beneficiaries, you could make an argument that they have no Social Security to offset. And so something might be done to assist them. However, in my view, the best thing you could do to assist them is to reverse the slide in the accumulated shortfall of the fund balances for their plan. Since 2015, the fire and police plan has been on a downward curve. The figures provided by the Finance Department this evening show that there's been a steady decline working away from 100% funding, which would be the goal, from a high of 75.9% funding ratio in 2014 to 69.8% in 2018. That's moving in the wrong direction. And without remedial action, again, the taxpayers will be the ones who have to come in. Because when you get down to the end of the plan, for people to receive what they were promised as pension benefits, you will have to take the difference between what is in the fund and what they were promised out of the general fund directly. So essentially, by voting for this, you're voting for a long-term tax increase for the citizens of Portsmouth. This is inequitable. If you want to put bonus money in, put it into the funds. Move the needle toward the 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we're ready for the discussion by council. Any discussion? Ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries. Which brings us to item 18-430, which is the consideration of the adoption of a certain ordinance. Will you read, not ordinance, but resolution? And will you read the caption of that resolution, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the city manager to approve change orders totaling more than 25% of the construction contract with Gaston Brothers Utilities LLC for the High Street Sewer Relocation Project.
Thank you. So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt?
Move for adoption. Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries. That concludes the city manager's report. This brings us to new business. And I'm going to exercise a point of personal privilege and recognize Councilman-elect Shannon Glover. And will you stand, please? And in fact, the light's so bad out there, would you come just forward so we can congratulate you all. Thank you so much. And second, I want to congratulate Councilman Bill Moody on his reelection to council. And here's a bit of trivia. We did some research, and this is true for at least modern history. Councilman Moody has the longest continuous tenure of serving on council. He's been on council for the last 2 decades. And lastly, although he's not here, congratulations also go to Councilman-elect Paul Battle. And with that, we'll come to item 18431, boards and commissions. And Councilman Moody, we don't have a report, do we?
No, we don't, Mayor, members of council. There are no appointments for boards and commissions to announce tonight.
Thank you, sir. 18432, item submitted by council members, and the chair recognizes Vice Mayor Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of items and things that will be happening in the city before we meet again. First of all, unless you've been living under a rock, I hope you are aware that the Farm Fresh grocer at Victory Crossing has reopened under new ownership. The fried chicken is frying, and we had a ribbon cutting this week that was very well attended, and the store was packed, and it looks like all will be very exciting. This coming Friday night, the 16th, in Old Town, there will be, the stores will be open a little later. There will be a concert in the Trinity Church in the sanctuary by the Tidewater Community College Chorus. We have a new business that has opened at 437 Court Street called Old Town Public House. It's been open, a soft opening, about a week now. That looks very popular, so it's a great time to visit that and all the other cute shops on High Street. On Saturday night, the 17th, it is the umpteenth annual Holiday in the City Christmas Parade, Holiday Parade in downtown Norfolk, which, you know, Old Town and Norfolk, Portsmouth and Norfolk share the Holiday in the City festivities. So, of course, Portsmouth will be well represented in the parade. It begins at 7 p.m. At in front of what used to be the Omni, that's now the Sheraton Hotel, and winds all through downtown Norfolk. So take the ferry over and enjoy the parade and the lighting of the city.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it'd be appropriate to recognize our registrar, Dolores Overton Short, for another impeccable election day. Anytime your registrar and the vote count is not in the news on TV, I think that's a wonderful thing. Yes. And our registrar and her crew are doing an impeccable job. In fact, she's been through many elections without incident. And as we all know by reading and looking at TV, that's certainly not the case elsewhere in our country. I'm very proud of the job that she does, keeping us out of the news, keeping the votes tallied correctly. I don't think anybody's found any in any rent-a-cars or floating down the river or anything. So I certainly salute her and her staff and all those election officials that assist her every election day.
Thank you, sir. And I think that you speak for all of the members of council, yes, and for the citizens. Thank you. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Lucas Burke.
Yes, I just want to bring to your attention that on Friday, the 16th, the Stop Inc. Board of Directors will host its annual stakeholders meeting, where I, as a liaison to the council, will be in attendance. Mr. Al Williams and I serve on that board together. We'll be there, and our mayor will be joining us this year, and you're welcome to join us as well. It'll be at the Delta Hotel in Chesapeake at 12 noon, and Dr. L.D. Britt, surgeon, will be our keynote speaker this year.
And the chair recognizes Vice Mayor Simmons.
I'm so sorry, I forgot something I am supposed to announce. And this is for all the young women in the city. It comes to me as in my role as liaison to the Port of Virginia. And these are some scholarship application opportunities for women in transportation. There are 6 scholarships for high school seniors going on into activities and schooling that has to do with transportation, be it rail, truck, or ship. The application deadline is December the 6th, and there's a lot of information here. If you are interested or have a young woman who is interested in these scholarship applications through the Port of Virginia, just call me at 757-535-0227, and I will forward you the information.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Dr. Patton.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I think this is very noteworthy. The City of Portsmouth, Portsmouth Public Schools, has one high school who's remaining in the state playoffs. IC Norcom High School is in the second round of the Virginia High School League state playoff game. They will be playing Hopewell, Virginia, Hopewell High School in Hopewell, Virginia on Friday night at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. And that is good news. Report on pending items. Dr. Patton.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, we have no items to report.
Thank you. Which brings us to item 18-434, non-agenda speakers. And our first non-agenda speaker is Tracy Link. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, Council, citizens. My name is Tracy Link, and I live on Sneed Fairway in the Green Lake section of the city. But this evening I come to you as my final act as chair of the Portsmouth Division of the HR Chamber. I congratulate the newest members of this esteemed council, and I hope the next few years prove to be some of our best in history to move our city forward as all of you learn to work together. I've long been a believer that Portsmouth is a great place to live and work. I believe in our potential as a city and our children as they take their place as adult citizens. I also believe that economic development is the key to our future success. And with that, I'm asking all of you to sit here this evening to do something that may be outside of what you believe is achievable. First, I urge you to be catalysts for creating a legislative package and agenda for the Hampton Roads delegation in Richmond. Our delegation could have 25 members with aligned goals and ideals at the ready during General Assembly session if we begin this all-important conversation. This is not a Democrat or Republican thing. I find both state houses of our delegation to be pretty evenly split, but we have common goals and common needs, specifically the betterment of our communities from public safety to workforce development and education. We can lead this charge. Portsmouth is and has been the economic center for Hampton Roads for many years, and we can be the driver of change on a state level that we always talk about. I challenge each and every one of you to begin to make the case to that entire delegation to pledge its economic commitment to our city, reminding them that it will do nothing but serve to its fullest capacity our entire region. I will not lament the lack of cohesiveness of the past or things that have cost our city, but I urge you to use those lessons to build your case. And I also urge you to consider that when you see Northern Virginia's well-aligned delegation receiving the most value from legislation passed in our House of Delegates and State Senate, we know that creating this alliance is crucial to the region and most certainly our city. Next, I implore you to consider placing the highest priority on fixing our broken windows. The broken window theory states that a community with visible signs of crime, antisocial behavior, and civil disorder create an urban environment that encourages further crime and disorder, including more serious crimes. It is time we seek positive solutions besides the continued overburdening of our police department. We can create a safe environment in our community by fixing the visible signs of deterioration and simply picking up the trash. Whether you believe this theory to be true or not, the reality is that communities that embrace and take serious active steps towards crime prevention through environmental design quickly garner strong results and a renewed interest from and economic development from the business building community. I urge you to consider a SEPTED plan review for everything that comes before you. This concept is not new. It's based on the book, The Fall and Rise of the Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. The four pillars embrace the knowledge that the built environment of a space can and will create public safety. They require natural surveillance, natural access control, territorial reinforcement, and maintenance. These concepts must move to the top of our priority list to make a difference. Additionally, I ask you to consider donating an empty building that can be used to shelter our homeless population on a permanent basis. A project like that will not only help our most vulnerable citizens, but will assuage many of the complaints of business owners throughout the city. I am on the front lines of this concern, and I can assure you that security and police do not want to arrest these people, but there's nowhere for them to go but jail. Homelessness should not be a criminal offense, but their continued trespass on private property for lack of anywhere to go should be dealt with in a more compassionate way. And finally, I urge you to get serious about the end user experience in City Hall and its role in our community. Diligent customer service is the key to success for any business model, and ours is sorely lacking. When someone walks into City Hall to do business, they should be treated with a kind, helpful, and resolution-seeking staff. But we are well aware that this is not always true. I've enjoyed great customer service experiences, but I've heard stories from people that really upset me. A renewed emphasis on outstanding customer service with our city employees that are paid for by the very same taxpayers that come to City Hall must be addressed. Again, I ask for a friendly, resolution-seeking staff. In closing, I truly love this city.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Walter Carter, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Simmons, members of the council, name is Walter Carter, live 1401 Watts Avenue, Portsmouth. I was here at the last council meeting, and I gave each council member a copy of an ordinance that was done in 1997. I have a question. Is that still in effect? Is that ordinance still in effect? Council don't know?
We're here to listen to you, and after you speak, Dr. Patton will have the appropriate person from staff meet with you, sir.
The reason I ask that is because my complaint, it is escalated since then, and I haven't seen any improvement in what I came about. It's about the property at 1428 Portsmouth Boulevard. My property is adjacent to that property, and I was the one that initiated the ordinance for that property to be changed from what it was to what it should be now. And it's a long ways from being what it should be. They shouldn't have automobiles on that property unlicensed, and nor should they have any, and they have wrecked cars, they have cars that's torn to pieces, they are working at night, and they are doing everything look like, since I was here last month, that they shouldn't be doing, look like it just went up. And that is my question, and I'm finished.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Patton, would you have somebody from your staff meet with Mr. Carter?
Yes, Mayor, we will. Mr. Bowen will meet with you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jenna Bernstein, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes. Could you adjust the mic, please, for you?
I will. Let's see if this gets to stay. Okay, hello, my name is Jenna Bernstein. I don't know if you remember me, but I was here once upon a time
in reference to the War Memorial big dispute. Well, I'm so glad that now I'm on a new mission and I donate my time and my resources, which I probably told you, and if you don't remember, I have worked with cities and through the National Park Service and the Veterans Administration, I have an approved product that will help restore your war memorial for free. So I called your Parks and Rec director, his name is Mark Pelichuk, and he said, I should go to you. I think he's a little nervous and who can do what when it comes to the public memorials, because I guess because of all the, I'm just assuming because of all the dispute, he wanted me to go to you for a resolution. He said it was within his authority. So I come to you and I have a written, because they said I have to do it in writing, to offer you my assistance for free. All I need is a key and 15 minutes to pick a few of the weeds that are around it on the actual war memorial and apply a D2, and I can email everything that's required, you know, from the Park Service and from the Veterans Administration and the product that they use, which is Biological Solution, to eat the mold and mildew. And it will be completely restored for free, courtesy of me. So I just want to let you know.
Thank you.
So I don't know if you can actually
If you
take
could
this
give
and
that
give it
to
to
the-
Sergeant of Arms and maybe make
Please.
a resolution.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to help your city. Definitely help your city.
Are you through?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Good. Thank you.
God bless.
Councilman Smith.
Yeah, I was just unsure as which war memorial she's talking about. The Confederate Monument?
On Court Street.
Oh, okay, all right. I was just trying to make sure of
Thank you.
what you was talking about. Thank you.
All right. That concludes our speakers, and that concludes our agenda, and this meeting is adjourned.